Hey everyone, so today's video is going to be a what's on my iPhone video, and the main reason for this particular video and it being made right now is actually because of a recent post I saw regarding a jailbreak for every device. Essentially, because that jailbreak is coming, and because of the fact that I've been out of the jailbreak community usage, that is obviously not in terms of production or anything, but basically I just haven't jailbroken any of my daily drivers for quite a few years. And the main reason for that is partly to do with when the jailbreaks were actually released, partly to do because of the fact that a lot of the tweaks and things that I actually used originally, they pretty much made the phones unstable, and especially when it came to video recording, video editing, as you'll see from the apps and the layout that I'm actually using right now. It just got to the stage where I just didn't want to have that sort of unreliability in terms of battery drain, the little glitches that you sometimes used to get. As I say, it's been quite a while since I've done a jailbreak, but the current uncovered jailbreak that was announced recently has actually got me excited because of the fact that it will literally be across the board. And from if it is true in terms of what it says, the fact that it'll be the first one of the very few jailbreaks that have been released in recent times that will just work across the board on any device. With me upgrading my phone every year, generally what I've found in recent years is the older phones that I've had the previous year may have been jailbreakable, but the current one, whichever the current device was, it was either the fact that it wasn't not even a semi untethered, it was just tethered, so you needed to repeat the process every time. Going back a few years, I haven't really seen any that are completely untethered in recent times. Even semi-tethered, it can be a little annoying, and generally it's normally like mail bugs and things like that you'd end up with. The last time, the thing that actually put me off was a camera bug, and I'm not sure what it was. It wasn't even a tweak related to the camera, but what it used to do was certain photos, portrait photos, just wouldn't appear in your camera roll. You'd take photos, it'd slow down the whole interface, and then they wouldn't actually show up in the camera roll. If you then restarted the phone after a short period, they'll start appearing, but you were never sure when you were taking the photos or recording video whether that it was actually getting captured or not. And that was one thing that obviously at that point it was a case of, now I've got to remove this and just stick to what it was. Plus obviously some of the older devices, they wouldn't have had the battery life that the current one does, so that was also a deterrent back then as well. But as I say, this video is going to be about the current layout and how I'm using it at the moment. So what I'll do is I'll start from the top. So top left is just your calendar. I think that's actually the standard position it normally is. In fact, the top row I think is all just standard. Calendar I do use quite a bit. Obviously I schedule quite a lot of my day and my weeks and everything via the calendar. The two main things I use is the calendar and the reminders apps. I don't really use any third-party apps for anything like that. Similarly with the mail app, I did try Outlook for a short while, but I never really liked it in terms of just the simplicity of the original mail app. I know you can do more with other mail clients, but it's simply down to the fact that I just want something to do the job as simple as possible and just keep all the junk and the notifications away from basically bombarding me all the time. So top left is obviously calendar. Photos is always second over. Third one is the camera. The camera I was tempted to actually bring down because I actually use that a lot more. This layout itself may actually rotate slightly, but this is essentially because now with YouTube, and it's getting a lot more usage now than it used to. Settings, I like having that on my main homepage and having it top right. So now coming down to the second row, this is where basically my actual usage comes into it. So Luma Fusion, for those who haven't seen my videos, is basically a godsend when it comes to video editing and creation essentially. And I've done a separate video on Luma Fusion itself, so I would suggest you go check that out, and it'll give you an idea of just how powerful this particular application is. It wasn't a cheap application. I think back in the days it was something like £20, £25, something like that, and back then that was a lot of money for an iOS app. Originally it wasn't even called Luma Fusion. I can't remember the original name for it, but I purchased it when it was I don't know if it'll have it anywhere in the, no, I don't think it references the original name anywhere, but originally this was actually called something completely different, and basically the company that made it, obviously they released an update and changed the name, changed the branding slightly as well. So Luma Fusion, that stays, and what I tend to do is anything that I use the most doesn't go into a folder. So this, as you can see from the layout, I do have a few folders that I'm willing to have just because I want them on this primary page, but the main things, they stay out of folders. So Luma Fusion, obviously the main first one. Next one, I have a photography folder. You could also consider this to be videography as well, because obviously you've got Filmic Pro, you've got Double Take, and you've got some other ones further on as well. But what we'll do is we'll quickly run through these just to try and keep the video length a bit shorter. What I may do is delve into each one of these later in individual videos, just to give you a bit more depth. So Snapseed is one that I used to actually use for all my thumbnails. It's a very good app for basic quick photo edits and things like that. It comes with built-in filters and presets that you can actually use if you just want to add a little bit more HDR or vintage looks, that kind of stuff. Fonto is actually the app that I use for most of my thumbnails, and what I'll do is I will do a separate video on that because I really like that app, and considering you can get it's a free download, I believe there is a in-app purchase just to get rid of the ads, but the app itself is free. And next to that is Pixelmator. Pixelmator is the main one that I actually use in terms of pulling PNG images. So whenever I'm, as you may have seen on some of the thumbnails, when I'm taking images of TVs and remotes and things like that, ordinarily you can search the web for PNG images, but generally you're only going to find old stuff. Or if you can find the new stuff, that particular site might require you to sign up to it and basically give them details and stuff like that. So for that reason, Pixelmator, similarly again, if I find enough interest in it, what I'll do is I'll make a separate video on that. Photoshop Fix, this I don't really use that much now. I used to actually have certain apps in this first page that unfortunately once they were actually updated, a lot of the developers actually took away features and made it so then you had to either subscribe to a monthly payment or something like that. So a lot of these don't actually get as much usage. Imovie, for example, is very rare that I actually use Imovie. Obviously it comes free with any of the new purchases, and because I've had it in the past, I'll always have it. But iMovie, it's in fact on this particular device I don't think I've actually used it, but I keep it in this folder, and obviously whenever I get a new device it just copies everything over. Big Lens was what I used to actually use for bokeh effect back in the days before we actually had dual lenses and essentially simulated bokeh as we have it now. But this was the manual way of doing it, where you literally draw around whatever subject you have. You can either just draw around them, or you can use like a square or a circle focal point, and it'll blur everything else out around that. Filmic Pro is obviously a very popular and famous application for anybody who wants to take videography just a touch further. It's not a cheap application, and my primary reason for buying that, as I've mentioned in a previous video, was actually to do with regards to the app next to it, which is Double Take. So during the iPhone 11 Pro announcement, Filmic Pro were actually on stage and they made this announcement that they will bring in this addition to one of their apps, and what that addition would do is allow you to record from all three lenses, well, three lenses, possibly even all four lenses at the same time, and you can have them either sat on top, picture-in-picture type effect, or you could just record them separately, have the high bitrate video, and then you could choose after where to make the cuts, and you've basically got two shots of the same video. Unfortunately, they didn't actually stick to releasing that update, and they released Double Take instead. Double Take effectively does the same thing, however it's limited to 1080p, and obviously for me, virtually everything I do, I want it in 4K 60, so that's obviously a sore point. But as I say, I'll delve into that in a different video anyway. NeuralCam, I've actually done a recent video on this. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. It just gives you a good idea in terms of who this application is suitable for, and also certain scenarios when you can use it regardless of which device you have. Coming on to the second page, so this is where one of the apps, so PhotoFox, I believe this is one of the ones where they actually changed it, and it used to be called something slightly different. As you can see, they've now changed it where you have to basically subscribe or give them a one-off payment, even though I believe I've already paid for this app once. But this app, I used to actually like it for making simple little edits and color filters, things like that. But to be honest, since they've changed the icon and updated the app, I've not actually used it since because of that. ZY Play, that's actually to do with my gimbal. It's a Smooth Q, I believe it's called Xeon. I've not actually used it in quite a while, but even when I do use the actual gimbal, I don't actually use this particular app. The main reason for that is what this company did, Xeon, was they released a Smooth Q3, I believe, shortly after I actually purchased mine. And what they did was inside the app, they limited the Smooth Q version to 4K 30, despite the fact that there's no hardware reason for them to have done that. So the only way you could have actually got 4K 60 was to use the newer gimbal with the same software. So because of that, I've just never even used this. It did have some cool features, like you could use crane mode and things like that, so you could do a steady pan, and basically it was good for B-roll. But because of the fact that they've limited it to 4K 30, most of the shots that I would have taken, I would have wanted them in 4K 60, just that way if I did want to slow them down, it would still look nice and smooth. Prisma, I believe, was just a sort of filters app. This one's kind of strange because it actually does it online, so you have to actually have a live connection. As I said, if you're interested in any of these videos, I can do separate videos on these. Most of this second page and this third page don't actually get that much usage. So Sketch, Photo Transfer, I used to use that many years ago to transfer files to and from my PC, Windows PC. And to be honest, I've not had to do that in quite a few years, not since I've had my NAS drive. Primary reason is I can now go straight to the NAS drive, and if I ever wanted to access anything on my PC, I can do it via my NAS drive. So basically that's pretty much redundant now. Plotverse, I've no idea what that is even. I think it's probably one of the ones where it animates a photo. Same thing again. It's something that I dislike on applications when they change the core of it, and they want you to either sign up or give them a monthly subscription for something that basically you'd already pretty much paid for. Animoto, I'm guessing this is very similar kind of thing. Free prints and photo books. This is actually something that's local here. I'm not sure if this is worldwide or not, but it's essentially where you can take photos that you've got on your phone or Google Drive or whatever, any location that you can actually access, and essentially you can either do single prints, so just like your normal processed photos, or you can do this photo books where I'll actually send out a printed book essentially. It is quite good. Sometimes they run offers where basically it'll give you say for example one book a month free, and all you pay for is postage. Essentially it works out the same amount anyway, but as you can see, it can look pretty cool depending on if you pay the extra. You do have to pay the extra in order to get the better paper, get the full screen kind of prints and all that kind of stuff. But it's a good, both of these are good ideas. They're both sort of apps that are forward thinking, and it just makes life easier for those that do actually want a physical copy or a book, or just for that nostalgic kind of feeling. Having them printed out every now and then, you can pull out for just have the kids watch, look through the photos after a while, and it's good to look back on those kind of things. Coming on to the third page, as you can see by the iCloud icon, the passport one, I've no idea why I even downloaded that. April photo bucket I don't actually use. Amazon Photos, similarly, I don't use Amazon Photos, I use Google Photos. We'll get onto that a little later on. Right, these next few, these are actually really cool for wallpapers and stuff. So Vellum is one of the ones that's you can get some absolutely beautiful vivid kind of photos from that. Zedge is a really good one. You can even get animated wallpapers, but as you can see, they have these little token price tags, and what you have to do is basically watch adverts in order to get the money essentially, and then you can use that in exchange for the wallpapers. Unsplash, this is a really good one for wallpapers. Once again, the only slight thing with this is it's probably intended more for desktops and iPads and laptops, that kind of stuff, because most of the photos, generally the really good ones, are basically landscape, or as you see, you end up having to crop in quite a bit in order to get it to full screen. But very detailed images, and basically if it suits what you like, then these can be good. Personally, I always find all of these images to be slightly too dim, slightly too dull for my liking, even when I'm using a black background. So but a really good application, would recommend it. Next to that, Turn Live Wallpapers. I don't think I've ever even used that, so really I should probably get rid of it. Lens distortion, I believe this was one of the ones where it's probably similarly, again, it simulates bokeh, or it adds additional filters on top. So this is probably good for when you've already edited an image to color correction, all that kind of stuff, and you just want to add maybe a lens flare or something like that on top of it. So that's the photography folder. Coming over to the next one, Infuse. This is obviously my go-to application for all of my media. So essentially all my movies, anything that I've got downloaded, all the TV shows, it'll literally play back anything that you download. And then all the video one is basically my all the home videos and all the birthday videos, all that kind of stuff. And the brilliant thing about it is every time they upgrade it, you get upgraded to the latest version for free. Next to that is Iptv Smartos. This is the main IPTV app that I actually use on the phone. So Iptv Smartos, main one that I use on the go, on the phone, quickest access, and being able to use it, Iptv Smartos. Right, coming on to the third row, YouTube is always there. Even before I started actually posting YouTube videos, I was always, basically it was almost like a daily thing. I'd go through all my subscriptions, all the channels I'm personally subscribed to, and I'd just flick through them. Next to that is Notes. Notes is massive for me because it's pretty much how I track everything to do with my YouTube channel, remembering all the videos I've posted, any ideas. Whenever I get an idea for a video, I'll just quickly open up Notes and I'll basically just post it in there. As you can see from here, I've got all of these kind of different ideas for videos, and I'll just tick them off as I go along. Coming on to the next one is the Synology folder. So this is for my NAS drive. This is where all the main apps for basically for how I interact with my NAS drive, with the exception of DS Cam in the bottom right. So DS File is basically where you move stuff around. DS Photo is the reason why I no longer need to use anything else in terms of transferring and backing up data. With this, basically, as long as the file isn't too large, so I have found in the past where it's been improved a bit because they have updated it since. Originally anything above say 2 gigabytes video files just won't upload with DS Photo. It'll just hang and hang and hang, and what I would have to do is open up DS File and upload the file manually, and then delete them from camera roll, and then go back and it'll carry on. If you have a really large file, so obviously when I'm making these YouTube videos, say for example if I wanted to back one of those up, you're talking between 16-20 gigs, sometimes even higher than that depending on the length of the video. So with that, I would literally just open up DS File, choose the location, and upload that file manually, and then just delete any large files off. You open up DS Photo. What it'll do is, I've actually got this set up so then for my phone it'll upload all my photos and videos to my folder. For my wife's and my kids' phones, it'll actually upload their media straight into their folder, so it separates everything for us. So then later on, if we need to find something, we literally just go into each of our individual folders essentially, and basically we can find them from there. So as you can see, if I go into folder, as you can see, everything's separated here, so it's all nice and easy to use. Orbi is my mesh router system, and it's one that probably needs its own video because it has its pros and cons. Back when I actually purchased this system, it was when I was at my old address. That particular house was it had an extension on the back of where the kitchen used to be, so from the front of the house to the back of the house you're probably talking what, over 60-70 feet. And basically our router location when it was first installed, the Virgin router, was right at the front of the house. So basically by the time you got to the kitchen you were virtually crawling. I had back then I think it was something like 300 meg down with about 20 meg up, and in the kitchen you'd barely be getting 1 to 2 meg. Basically I used to be able to get my brother's Wi-Fi from next door better than I could actually get my own. So for that reason I actually upgraded the whole system to a mesh system, and Orbi was the one that I chose at the time. As I say, I'll delve into that in a separate video because it needs a lot more explanation, because with the choice of mesh router systems out there, it really boils down to what you're looking for, what your requirements are in terms of which one is best for you. Most of them will do a pretty much similar job, but obviously each one will have its pros and cons. Right, so just below that, DSGet is the download client, if you like, that comes with, is part of the Synology group of apps. It's not actually available anymore, as I found out from one of my videos that I posted on the channel with regards to downloading torrent files. But if you can't get hold of DSGet, then you can actually use this one on the second page, which is DS Mobile. Both of them do a very similar job. They're literally just download clients. The NAS drive itself is doing all the work. All you're doing is literally just pasting a link. DS Finder is essentially what I use to manage my app. So as you can see, generally it's towards 80 to 90% total storage, and this is generally when I'm downloading content and getting rid of it again. For the most part, obviously it's getting towards filling up now, mainly because every single month and year that goes by, I'm downloading and saving memories going back years. If we just come into videos, so as you can see, 2015, 2014, December 2014, some from either from 2012. So as you can see, we've got birthday videos, first, second, third, all this kind of stuff. Not everything's organized as much as I would have wanted it. We've got holiday videos, all kind of stuff. So for that reason, I will probably be looking at upgrading soon, so I'll probably just add a second drive in. Originally I actually messed up because I didn't realize you could use a drive that was higher capacity than 6 terabytes. Having checked since, I've actually realized that you can, I think it's pretty much, you can go all the way up to 14 terabytes. So the next one I get will probably be a 14 terabyte one. In terms of the setup, as I said, I'll do a separate video on this completely because it's too much to actually delve into. Below that, I've got some links to some of the torrent sites, and these are basically the searches that I do. So I search for 4K Blu-rays, I search for 4K TV shows, and then basically 1080p TV shows, and I only download basically the highest quality of each version that I can find. So if it's available in 4K, it's going to get downloaded in 4K. Coming on to the second page, you've got the DS Video app. I don't really use this that much, mainly because playback performance of it isn't quite as good as Infuse, and obviously if I've got Infuse to play back everything, this is essentially just doing the same thing, but it's just not laid out in the same sort of if I just come into movies, for example, it doesn't pull up all the placards and the video overlays and everything like that. It's not got this sort of really beautiful interface, if you like, with all this data. Obviously now we've even got IMDb ratings on here. If it's HDR, it'll tell you that as well. So Infuse is always getting updated. What else have we got? So right, so the ones that say DSM, they're just shortcut links for my router's homepage. So they literally sorry, not for the router, for the NAS drive. So that'll literally just log me into the NAS drive. I've made a short video on the usage of the NAS drive. I believe it was in the video to do with HomeKit, and I literally just logged in and showed you how to set up static IPs and stuff like that. So there's a brief look on that in another video, but as I said, all of these kind of things really, they need their own videos in order to delve into them. Live cam is actually to do with the DS. It's similar to DS cam. So live cam, what it does is it allows you to use any spare devices as your security camera, essentially. The one downside with using that would be, firstly, most security cameras, most phone cameras don't have a night mode. So whereas most security cameras, even if you don't have the infrared lights enabled, like I don't use them with mine because I have mine mounted inside and they're shining through a window, you'd literally just get reflection and you won't be able to see anything. But even without that, most security cameras can actually pick up quite a bit using its night mode. So it'll switch and it'll basically cut off the color and it'll switch to sort of an infrared night mode, and it'll pick up quite a lot of detail, whereas most phones don't. So the security cameras in terms of phones, unless you're using it in a location where it's indoors, it's pretty much useless and it doesn't really serve its purpose very well. The positive side is obviously they're always really clear. So in terms of picture quality, generally live cam's going to give you a better picture quality than most security cameras out there, unless you're paying for something more higher end like the C2 that I've got. Next to that is Genie. That's another one very similar to the Orbi one, this one here, and it's pretty much another part of the Netgear setup. I don't really use that one much. The next two are just links, and as I said, the DS Mobile is the one very similar to DS Get. So coming on to the next folder, this is essentially all of my sports kind of apps. At the moment, obviously none of these are really getting used. Main one was probably live football on there, yeah. So sometimes it's called live soccer as well. And the good thing about this particular app is what it does is if you click into any of the games and you scroll down, what it does is it gives you all the international coverage. So this basically, if I go down to USA, for example, so as you can see, it literally just gives you a list of all the channels in different countries. So if a particular game isn't streaming in your country, what you can do is find whichever country you know will be streaming it and find the relevant stream. Mainly I use this to be able to get a English stream, English commentary. Generally it's always the United States kind of streams that I tend to use anyway. So that one's really useful. Premier League is obviously Premier League football, Sky Sports, Boxing Nation, Champions League. Formula 1, to be honest, I don't really use that very much. Same with the BT Sport, the LFC official one. I did have that set up for notifications. It's not actually very good because generally throughout a game, sometimes it will tell you that the game is about to start in 50 minutes time. The game will kick off, a goal will be scored, you'll get a notification about the first goal perhaps, and then two more goals might be scored and you just won't even see any notification. A similar thing with their starting lineup. Before the game actually kicks off, roughly about say half an hour before the game, you normally get a notification with the starting lineups. Now you'll get a notification at the top, so it'll pop up on your screen, you click on it, but when it actually goes into the app itself, the link will just be broken, and this happens almost every single time. I don't know whether they will have updated this by the time football does actually return, but it's really bad for a club the size of Liverpool to have an app that's got basic breakdowns in terms of the usability of it for something as simple as just clicking on a link and opening a certain page. So, but anyway, this is a folder that normally would get a lot of usage during the normal sports year, but obviously right now with no sports being on, it's something that obviously isn't getting used very much. Right, so next row down is App Store. Obviously search for apps, updates, all that kind of stuff. TSB is my banking app. This is for my personal banking, and it's just so then I'm always transferring money to either my wife or my kids and stuff like that, so I like to have that on my homepage. Essentially these three are kind of shopping ones. These are the main ones that I actually use, so eBay and Amazon. Next to it, obviously self-explanatory. Below that is kind of a little bit of social media. To be honest, the Facebook one, I only ever used that. It was originally for my IPTV, because the contact that I actually bought my IPTV from, he was only actually set up on Facebook. That's the only reason I had to actually keep it around. Since then, I actually keep it around just to be able to download timetables and things like that for prayer times. So I find it useful for that. Other than that, and basically some of the additional apps that you can, well, external apps that you can download for Facebook as well as Twitter, I've never really liked them that much. I was using a different one for Facebook, but the problem was it wouldn't let you choose which photos you could actually download. If there was a post, for example, and it had 5 photos, it would show you the first 3, and then you'd click to see more, and then it just kind of crashed. For that reason, I ended up downloading the main one again. Twitter, as you should know from the endings of the videos that I post, I've set up a Twitter account for the channel. If you haven't already done so, just subscribe. Occasionally I'll post behind the scenes kind of footage and videos that aren't going to get posted to the channel, maybe just opinions, things like that, or little tips and tricks, something that somebody might have asked me about but isn't long enough to actually warrant posting a full video for. Right, next to that is, as I said earlier on, Google Photos. So the reason I use Google Photos is primarily just for the free storage. So what I do is all the videos that I shoot with just family and all the normal kind of videos, I'll back them up on here as well as my NAS drive. So on my NAS drive I'm getting full quality, so I will back them up 4K, 100 megabits per second, whatever the bitrate is. I don't care about how big the file is, I'll back it up, and once the drive fills up, I'll just get another drive. Google Photos, I only use that really for quicker access for the photos. The photos, I believe, if it's up to 12 megapixels, then it's full quality, and at the moment, obviously, because the iPhones haven't gone above that, everything has been stored at full quality. Next year, well, this coming year with the iPhone 12 may be different. if they do actually choose to upgrade the sensor. For videos, I realize they're getting reduced down to 1080p. Most of the time I will still back them up, just so then I've got an additional backup there. A worst case scenario, if my NAS drive was to fail, it means that at least I've got a backup. Next to that is YouTube Studio. This used to be on the second page. This is essentially where I manage my whole account from, and this is where I come in to actually reply to comments and stuff like that. Occasionally what I have found is it's not very good in terms of how it pulls through comments, because a lot of the times what it doesn't actually show you on here. So for example, if I come across 2 comments, I have this section here where I can hit held for review, likely spam, or just published. And I had a few comments where they were in likely spam, but they weren't showing up in the app. For that, I had to actually go onto the website and do it that way. But it's essentially how I manage my whole channel and manage all of the videos and everything that I post and schedule, and it does help quite a bit in just keeping an eye on the channel. Right, so coming on to the bottom, the bottom row of icons, obviously not including the dock. So this is essentially the main smart home apps that I use that I don't use all the time. In fact, what I'll do is I'll start from the bottom right. So bottom right is DS Cam. This is my security cameras, and these are basically linked to my NAS drive. So both of these cameras are, one is Reolink, this one, and one of them is this. It's just a generic DJI, just a generic camera, and both of these I've actually got set up via my NAS drive in DS Cam. The reason I have this on my main homepage is because of how fast it actually opens up. As you can see, that's refreshed and basically showing live footage. I don't really want to be showing that right now. Maybe I might insert some other clips later on where nothing is actually there. With both of these, I don't really need these. These are more so just to make my life easier. So the main reason I have the front one is whenever my doorbell rings, and I'll delve into the doorbell side of things a little later, it lets me just quickly check if there's a delivery or something, and then I know to answer the door basically. The back garden one, the main reason for that is basically my neighbors aren't very good, and it's actually to make sure that if any damage occurs to the fence panels, that I've got it recorded and basically I can use that footage. It's not ideal, it's not something that I wanted to do, but obviously it's one of those things where sometimes it's last resorts. Another reason for that is also just for time lapse, and the fact that I can actually use two video live streams with DS Cam for free. So on the Synology NAS, it actually gives you a license to use 2 cameras for free. Any additional cameras that you want to install via DS Cam, you have to then buy additional licenses for, and I can't remember exactly. I think it's something like £110, and I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was a yearly payment as well, and that's obviously what put me off just getting more cameras and doing it properly. But 2 cameras front and back. The back one, as I say, I don't really need it. That's more so just for, it's there, so if the kids are ever playing in the garden for birthdays, things like that, I can just, it automatically records time lapses and stuff as well. So if I just come back into the main folder, if I come into surveillance, what it'll actually do is, so the front and back gardens, these are just individual normal kind of videos. So this is recorded at I believe it's 30 FPS for my front camera, and the back camera I believe only goes up to about 25. But what next to that, what I've also got is, I can't remember what transactions was, but time lapse is basically a time lapse. Everything that it's recording is then creating a time lapse for me as well, and then you've got the option for snapshot as well. That's if you do any manual photos, so that's all pretty cool. Next to that is obviously home, my main smart home app that I actually use. Most of the stuff that I do in terms of smart home I do from here, and as I said, I've made a separate video on this. You have to go check that out because I absolutely love the HomeKit setup, and I'm always making little tweaks and changes to it. Next to that is Cloud Edge. This is actually my doorbell, and the reason I have this there as well is because I can actually just pull this up. This won't actually show anything right now because it's actually on charge, so it's showing the underside of the media table that I've actually got, but essentially that's getting charged up right now because battery was low. I have these 3 here because what I've actually got set up is I've got a little motion sensor tucked underneath the cladding on the outside of my house. So what actually happens is if somebody comes onto my driveway, what I'll do is I'll just click into this. So this is my driveway. So if somebody was to come on here, and as soon as they walk down here and get to this bottom corner, it'll actually scan them and it'll detect motion. And what it'll do is it'll do a few things. So firstly, I've got the Aqara system, so it'll actually play a doorbell chime, because one of the problems we used to have was couriers would come and they'd either knock on the door or they'd just do the letterbox, and we won't be able to hear them because we might be in the garden or something. What this actually does is, firstly, it can the doorbell, if they actually press the doorbell, it'll actually send a notification via this app. So that's obviously good. It's in real time, it's pretty fast, and that's why I actually kept this particular doorbell. But what it also does is I've got in fact you can actually just hear it. Somebody's just walked past. My wife actually just walked out, so because of that, it's actually just, if I pull down here, there you go. So what it does is it turns on the LEDs. So even if you don't hear the doorbell, you'll notice all of the LEDs in the house come on. So this is the kitchen LEDs come on, the living room LEDs come on, and even in the front room, the media console lights come on. This is so if you say, for example, you're watching a movie, you're blasting the audio, you'll notice that somebody's outside. So this is all, in my mind, what is actually smart about a smart home. A smart home shouldn't be something where you have to come in here and manually click stuff. It's about automations, and I'll delve further into my actual automations in another video, because some of them are quite cool and other people might find them quite useful. But essentially this bottom row is all of my smart home. Just in this folder, I'll just touch on a few other apps. So LifeX is self-explanatory. That's the smart bulbs that I actually use. I don't have any of their strips. LifeX, if you're listening to this, if you want to send me out any strips for review, you're always welcome to do so. But LifeX is a very good company to actually deal with. My first interaction with them was I actually purchased a lot of the bulbs at a previous address because I wanted to go the smart home kind of route, and it was mainly because my son used to always leave his room light on, and his room was in the attic, and we'd have to crawl three sets of stairs, well, 2 sets of stairs to go turn the lights off. So I installed the bulb just so then if he ever leaves the light on, I can just turn it off from downstairs in the kitchen. But one of them was actually defective. I purchased the bulbs via Amazon. I contacted LifeX. They didn't ask me for any details in terms of purchase history, receipts, anything like that. They literally just took my details, took the serial number for the bulb to obviously verify that it was genuine, and then they just sent me out a replacement just like that. So as a company to deal with, I found their customer service is top notch, so can't recommend them highly enough. Magic Q, I've touched on this in a separate video, so you can go check that out. That's in the HomeKit video. That's basically the main LED light strips. Below that is Reolink, I've already touched on. DJI I've touched on. Honeywell is actually my thermostat. I will make a separate video on that because it deserves one. Aqara Home and Xiaomi Home, they're both to do with all of my Aqara setup. I use both of these, and similarly again, I'll make a separate video on the automations for those. Home Assistant, I've got it installed on my NAS drive. I don't really use it. I did trial it for a little while, and the main reason I installed that was to be able to actually have color shift on the LifeX bulbs even when I don't have the app open, because that didn't used to be a feature of that. LG Wi-Fi speaker, I've mentioned this in one of my previous videos for the SR10YG soundbar that I have. A must-have app if you have any of the LG soundbars. Coming on to the second page, these ones generally don't get used very much. EV-Link used to be a smart plug that I had on some of my lamps. As I say, I don't really use that very much. Eve is one that I downloaded to try and do some automations with. I've not really got very far with that because I've generally everything that I want to do I've been able to do via the Aqara ones. DS Manager Pro, this is just very similar to DS File, is it? DS Finder, yeah. So it's pretty much just a management one, but what I liked about that one is it gives you like temperature and some of the other details about it. Below that, Amazon Alexa, so basically that's just to be able to use Alexa. Lombex, it was just one smart bulb that we actually had. HD Minicam Pro, that was a additional security camera, but basically I couldn't get that to link into DS Photo, so I didn't actually end up using it. Home Genius, I can't even remember what this one was. I think this was to do with the, yeah, so this is the smart plug. So as I said, this is also mentioned in the HomeKit video, so go check that out to get details on that. And Google Home and the Assistant, basically that's you have to download the Google Home in order to set up any of the LG soundbars. So, and the bottom row of apps, I leave these the same because generally I like to have these. Mail app I use quite a lot, messages obviously I use quite a lot, and Safari. The phone app, to be honest, I don't use my phone for phone calls very much, but generally what I have my phone set up as is to actually block any unknown callers and things like that, because I don't like getting especially whenever you renew your car insurance here in the UK, you get bombarded with phone calls from companies all over the place trying to sell you insurance, claiming that you've been in an accident, trying to get you to make a claim, and all sorts. So, but obviously phone app, I normally leave that on the dock as well. Second page is pretty much just a mixture of all sorts of different things, and this is where basically I've just got stuff chucked into folders and everything, but for most of my usage it's all done on this first page. I do have a third one. The main reason for me having this third one, I could actually fit all of those on here, is this is when I just want to see the actual iPhone screen. But anyway, as this video has gone on for quite a while, what I'll do is I'll call it a day at this point. If I do go down the jailbreak route, what I'll probably end up doing is doing another one of these with the jailbreak in place, just so then we could see the difference. And this is pretty much a reminder for me as well as anybody else out there in terms of this type of setup, because whenever I upgrade my phone it just copies everything straight across, but once you go down the jailbreak route it gives you the option where you can, whereas I've got all of these in folders, maybe you might be able to hide some of these, shrink the icons, get more onto the actual main page if you like, squash the icons together, get rid of the labels, all sorts of things. But obviously that's for another video. As always, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you like the video, hit thumbs up, and thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.